Hey everyone, welcome back to the second installment of Sail Prairie Sound Zoomcast. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Dominic Topicelli. I began sailing at Sail Prairie Sound when I was 6. Eventually, I ended up joining the race team, becoming an instructor, eventually becoming program manager. Just like my fellow Zoomcaster today, Andrew Parks, who in my last year of racing was my program manager. So we'd like to give a big warm welcome back to the Sail Prairie Sound community. Andrew Parks, nice to see you, buddy. How's it going?
Thanks, Dom, and thanks to Sail Prairie Sound for having me on this afternoon. Yeah, super excited to be here. Again, just, it'll be great to chat about Sail Prairie Sound, jogging my memory about so many good summers and so many good times spent with you people and with the whole sailing community in Prairie Sound. So excited to speak this afternoon.
Yeah, I was hoping, honestly, we'd be able to do this on like some level at the sailing school because so much has changed just like within the past couple of years too. So yeah, it's been super cool being able to do all this. But first and foremost, how's your quarantine been, man? What are you been up to?
Yeah, quarantine has been great. I've been very lucky. Like I can say in this economy, like obviously Canada has gone through a lot of turmoil. And there's been many issues, both with my current employer, but also all around that I see, right? And just being super lucky to still have a job. Been working virtually, which of course takes some time to get accustomed to. You can always have, let's say, socials with your team, but they'll always be virtual socials, which is just too bad. And it's a different kind of type of working, obviously. So I've been able to spend a lot more time, let's say, like trying to get out of the virtual office, since kind of the office and your home are kind of blurred lines at this point. It's just really important to continue exercising. Been doing a little bit of sailing when I can at my family cottage. Been doing some really cool camping trips and sea kayaking just to get out of that virtual office space. So honestly, can't complain. Maybe the one thing I can complain about is just kind of not seeing Sail Prairie Sound operating. But listen, it'll be back. So
back is better than ever. So for those that don't know, where are you working
now? Working actually at Deloitte in Toronto. Been working there for about 10 months so far.
Nice. And what are you doing for them there?
So working in consulting, my team specifically is a financial services transformation team. So primarily working with, let's say, financial services clients, transforming their operations. And that can be like all the way from like big banks in Canada to, let's say, smaller fintechs kind of thing. Smaller team, about 60 people or so, and each project is different. So I have a different project probably every 3 months or so. It's really a good way for me to kind of, I'm enjoying the job because it keeps me busy and I'm very curious to learn. So every single 3 months changes. It's not a job that you can kind of learn in like 3-4 months and it becomes kind of mundane. It's one where every single day is a learning experience. And I really like that. It's like every single day on the water when you're sailing, there's a new experience that can be thrown at you.
Yeah, absolutely. That sounds super rewarding. That's so now moving into sailing, I kind of want to start to talk a bit about like how'd you started your sailing career? We all know that you turned into this legendary sailor at Sail Prairie Sound, but how did the little Andrew start off?
I appreciate that, Dom. I would say just honestly, my mom probably got us involved. My sister and I was probably about like, let's say 10 years old in my first summer. And I remember just showing up and not it in my first few days because there was a lot of, as a 10-year-old, a lot of scary instruments happening, a lot of not knowing what irons was, a lot of turning around in circles. But really what kept me going back and back was the people. I can remember like early on, coaches like Nathaniel Ivey, Steph, and legendary people like that. Rachel Ivey as well, that kept me coming back summer after summer when I was very young. In addition to the fact that probably my father was a longtime sailor and always wanted us to be involved, and actually like being able to connect with my dad on sailing was something that probably was very important to me at that time as well. And I guess moving on, like very, very fortunate, of course, that my parents were able to put me through sailing school and ended up just really developing a passion for it. especially when I found a really good working relationship and sailing relationship with Steve Winkworth. That's really when we were able to take the sailing and racing thing to the next level. So definitely devote the racing thing to Steve and the team that we formed, and of course our lovely parents, which who helped to coordinate and organize all of our trips to various sailing recruits across Ontario. And later on in the coaching thing, I think what kept me coming back to Sail Prairie Sound as a coach was really just like seeing the smiles on your face, on people like you, who I had the opportunity to coach, right? I just remember coaching with various coaches in our, let's say, like Generation, Emma, Kulak, Alex Pitcher, Mika Sort, Sarah Torre, and Steve. And we had a great time all together. But we especially had a great time when we would make a kid laugh or make sure that they were having a good day. And that's part of the culture at Sail Prairie Sound. And it's really something that you only started to see when you were a coach, and enjoyed those summers.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I completely understand what you mean there. I feel like I kind of going back a little bit, you're talking about kind of how your parents involved with it. For me, I had a very kind of different experience. I'm among the only people in my family that sail. My aunt sails, which I learned weeks ago for the first time.
Nice.
So it's kind of one of those things. I think they did it initially to get rid of me, but it was just like at the beginning, I think I felt the same way. I did, like kind of scared. Like when you get there, it's very overwhelming because it's kind of like this new skill that is like in these giant boats, and there's so much going on. It's just all these new things that you would never see like anywhere else if you did.
Lots of moving parts.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, I remember, I think I went, when I first started, I must have been really young. I think the first couple of years I could have gone, and then I took time off and then came back. And then after that, I just couldn't get out of it. It's just one of those things. As soon as it like gets a hold of you, you're done for. So
now you and your aunt are going to have to go on a nice long sail when possible.
We just got our new CL14.
There you go.
Brand freaking new. Yeah,
those things are wonderful craft, Dom.
Ports now, 20 minutes in. First sail. Dropped off and just drifted away.
Oh, man.
It was fine. We got it.
Sometimes stuff just happens on the water, right?
Yeah, this is a story for another day. So, and I think, certainly in like the Canadian sporting landscape, I feel like sailing is often one that's, pretty overlooked, of course there's hockey, lacrosse, and there's definitely other things I think, the majority of Canadians look to. But I mean, I've always been very thankful for my time in sailing, just in every kind of stage of development through it. I kind of was hoping that you could talk a little bit about like what you really kind of took from sailing and helped you in your kind of everyday life. Like what were some things that Sail Prairie Sound instilled on you on like a character level?
I think that's a good question. Yeah, I would say it's pretty interrelatable to what I do now, right? Moving on from academics after graduating university, right? I moved on to a full-time job. And every day in your job, things can change, right? You might be putting out fires one day. A client might want a new task or want to change to what you've actually created. Maybe starting as a sailor in the beginning, it made you more able to handle that pressure and handle stress and make decisions quickly and efficiently, and change course.
Yeah.
That's super helpful in any workplace, I think, right?
Yeah.
I think moving on to working as a head coach or working as a coach in sailing, what I've really enjoyed about just like bringing this into the real world, I would say is just the mentorship opportunities. Like I really love in my job having the opportunity to work with interns, people who are just kind of in university now, providing them the appropriate amount of guidance and really like helping them along when they're making certain career decisions. And that came from me learning how to coach, right? It can come from anything. If you're teaching like hockey, if you're just a teacher, if you've done your Bachelor of Education, right? And I think that's a valuable experience and an asset for sure. Yeah.
Now, over the years, I'm sure you probably, there's some very famous regattas in Ontario. Some names that come out of Cork, Four Sisters and the Steers. Then you got, are there any personal favorites for you that you went every year you look forward to?
Yeah, I'd say it was Cork. And in your previous question, like I was just kind of reminiscing on a few things. I remember the one Cork where Steve and I did really well. And it was a summer Cork, and we ended up I remember rounding the last mark, and I believe we were in first place.
Yeah.
And that felt cool because we were winning this leg. Now Steve and I, we were traditionally like a heavier weight crew compared to the rest of the 420 crews. Steve liked to eat a lot. I like to eat a lot as well. What can I say? We were slimming down by any means. And it was not something that we could have overcome, because we were growing teenagers at that point. So I think at the point, for some reason, the wind might have died. And at that point, like our spinnaker, of course, was the only thing keeping us going on a downwind to win. And we just see these other crews just going past us quickly, very fast. And I think we ended up in fourth place.
Much lighter than you, they can get downwind.
Not much lighter. And I just remember that being like, even so, one of our greatest accomplishments, because Steve and I looked back at the end of the day and thought, like, wow, we were winning for a leg of that race. That was amazing, right? Ones that I would look forward to year after year, probably Fall Cork, because it was very competitive. It was more like your provincials. And I think that Steve and I had certain crews that we were, friendly with, that we were still competitive with out there on the race, and just speaking to them and hanging out with them after races and just kind of chatting strategy with them was always interesting. Like it's always a friendly environment, and that's cool.
Now, you are one of the few Sailprey Sound sailors that's ever gone on the Ontario sailing team. Can you talk a little bit to that experience and what that was like and what that kind of circuit actually is? I don't think a lot of people who aren't kind of familiar with the Ontario sailing team kind of understand how it works.
Yeah, so I think we were on the Ontario sailing development team just to, but fair enough. I appreciate it. I think basically like most of the Olympic classes are the ones that are the Ontario sailing team. So the 420 class, obviously not being an Olympic class, we were considered kind of the development team. Really, we were able to kind of go and do some really amazing clinics. And I remember this one clinic that was down in Buffalo Canoe Club on Lake Erie, and basically brought together all the Ontario sailing development team. So 5 or 6 420 crews. And there was a really amazing coach named Oliver Bone, I believe, who was a former Canadian Olympian for the 470 class. We actually spent like 5 days. That was Steve and I also camping out in a campground nearby. So I remember that clearly. And then every single day we'd show up at Buffalo Canoe Club and train with these really good crews, and also with Oliver Bone. And I just remember that experience being like super awesome. One, because also like you're 19 years old and you're also looking for a nice get from maybe your parents. So Steve and I were kind of trusted with the ability to go camping by ourselves. So I was like, this is awesome. We're going to have a good time. And we did. And then 2, we learned so much from that. And it was a great experience. And just having Oliver Bone and hearing about his Olympic experience was something that I just never heard that perspective, apart from when you watch the Olympics and maybe see some sort of advertising about a certain athlete. It was really cool.
That's awesome. And you also sailed the Ontario Summer Games, yeah? What was that sailing like?
Yeah, no, good question. So I think coming from Sail Perry Sound and training on Georgian Bay, like we're super lucky with being able to train on, let's say, like a usually heavier than average freshwater surface. So Steve and I being like a bigger crew also, again, back to the fact that we weren't slimmed down by any means. We were very used to that heavy wind piece. I remember the Ontario Summer Games being a smaller lake in Sudbury. We just couldn't get to a win on that one. And we're close. Like I think we must have come like 8th or 7th. So again, like frustrating because you're watching a lot of people pass you who are smaller, but then Steve and I had really good strategy for these races and there wasn't much we could do. The actual experience going to the Summer Games itself, like I do remember that there was a really cool opening ceremony, and we kind of were able to represent Sail Prairie Sound there. and that sort of experience was cool. You had a lot of like concerts going on, a lot of people from many different sports. You look at like basketball players who are just like super athletic people out there every single day, soccer players, volleyball players, and they're really putting in the sweat, and to see them out there and they're like coordinated uniforms and everything. And then Steve and I, the only two from Sail Prairie Sound with our wonderful SPS shirts or whatnot. It was a cool experience to see all of that and kind of see the diversity that is Ontario, and also to see, many different sports represented and being able to represent a sport like sailing there. That was cool.
I want to thank you so much for coming on. This has been a blast. It's been super nice catching up with you. I don't think we've spoken probably since our last SIA meeting at the end of last Friday of sailing camp. So it's been an absolute pleasure catching up.
Yeah.
Hopefully,
Dom, it's been awesome. We appreciate what you and Thomas and the rest of the SPS crew have been doing this summer. It's been awesome, just kind of caring, or just paying attention to what's going on. And also shout out to Steve Winkworth, who I have to reconnect with at some point as well. So I know he did an interview with you guys, and Steve, if you're out there, let's reconnect, buddy.